To where? 16. Oh,
Hello, Isaac.
hello, Rabbi. Good afternoon.
I'm so excited to get started
Me
reading
too.
some Matthean texts.
Mazel
We're
tov on moving
flying
in.
through chapter
Mazel,
2.
mazel tov on your accomplishments and the big milestones. I'm excited for you. And if you can, we can get started. Be ready.
Oh man, yeah. So this chapter is we're almost up to chapter 3. You know what they say? If you get to the third chapter, it's not even worth quitting at that point.
Okay, so we start on verse 16 onwards.
Yeah, please. Well, how about
16.
let's read 16 to all the way up to the end of 18. Let's see how that goes.
Oh, that'll be a great. Yeah. Okay, let's try this. The Gospel according to Saint Matthew, chapter 2, verse 16 onwards. Then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, became furious, and he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem, and in all the regions and in all that region who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had ascertained from the wise men.
Wow.
Then was fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping in loud lamentations, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be comforted because they are no more.
Okay, so I don't know if we'll get to the prophecy fulfillment, but let's start on verse 16. So what strikes you, Isaac? He was outwitted by the Magi. Is
And
that how you interpreted this?
yeah, I mean, outwitted by a guy who views himself as being a skill at outwitting others. So this is a guy who's seen as being, how do I call it? What's the term I'm looking for? He was paranoid, and he killed people who, he killed anyone who was viewed as a threat. And so here he feels that he was beaten in his own game, and out of that game comes this anger and revenge and
Okay.
hatred.
So let
I
me
mean,
just point out on two other translations of that word, because this is obviously, there's probably no Greek word for outwit. In another translation, we have the word that he was fooled.
mhm.
And in another translation, the Greek translation, again, this is all from Greek, but from the Greek translation I use, it says fooled. And then from another translation it says he was mocked. And it's actually really interesting. All three of these feelings, outwitting, mocking, and fooling, are actually three different feelings and three different ways to read the text, that they are not like, I wouldn't even use them as synonyms.
Why would you not use them as synonym? I mean, I think that
If I outwit someone, I
yeah,
might then choose to mock them for
yeah.
outwitting them, but I would not. And if I mock someone, I'm definitely not fooling them. If I outwit them, I would say outwit maybe is a synonym of fool. I can hear that, but mock I feel is a very different. But you're definitely correct that there's a derogatory nature happening, that their ego of King Herod is getting messed with. He's not feeling a sense of security as a king that he would want.
Yeah, so it's not just ego, right? It's much deeper. Like this is a game he's played all his lifetime. He's killed anyone whom he is viewed as a threat. And people knew about this. He killed his sons. He killed people, again, anyone as a threat. And so it feels like it's both a threat to his kingdom and also being mocked or being tricked in his own game, or in his own, how do I say this, in his own conniving. He had made a career of fooling people, and now he feels he's been fooled, right? And that, to me, so that it's a double threat. The threat of
It's amazing that I feel like when we think of the psychology of humanity, sometimes there's anger about being fooled, and then there's because you're fooled, your anger. A lot of times, you'll feel angry that you're mocked. It's really interesting how the gospel wants us to see that there's two separate feelings
yeah.
that
So
Herod
here,
is experiencing.
so here's my question for you. Herod was a Jew, right? He was a Jew. Like this act of killing somebody, right? It's the exact opposite. It's the antithesis of the commandments of the way he's supposed to live, right?
Oh, so wait a second. So you're going to the next line about
Next line.
why he
Oh,
ordered. Okay, so putting aside the idea that he was outwitted by the Magi or mocked or fooled,
yeah.
and the feelings that the gospel wants you to feel, and almost like a condescending feeling towards Herod. And then after the fact, he was furious, he was angry, and wants you to know that. And then they want to know, and therefore he gave orders to kill all the boys. So you're pointing out there's a biblical proscription twice in the Ten Commandments at least, and not every single moralist, ethicist, humanist has ever thought of said murder equals bad. And
Mhm.
yet he comes along and says, let's murder. So let's go step by step. So he gave orders to kill all the boys. So you're pointing out that those orders should not have been followed. Is that what you're trying to say?
No, like, I mean, how can they even be like, how can it's difficult to imagine this kind of edict or
I
this
can
kind of
learn to understand you much better if I can get familiar.
Sorry, I don't know what that was.
it's hard to understand this kind of edict within a Jewish world because he's a Jew, as a practicing Jew. um, Again, what he's prescribing here, it goes directly against the commandments. I mean, one is jealousy, right? Do not covet. do not
Look at
do not
you.
covet.
No,
Now,
don't covet.
I'm intrigued. Like, yeah, do not covet, and then now it's anger, right? About now it's hatred and
Oh,
killing.
and again, it's interesting. So anger. So if you wanted to, it's when we think of the seven deadly sins, which obviously aren't a Jewish concept, he's hitting two of them very easily here, right? There's a sense of jealousy. There's a sense of anger, and again, being like having the wool thrown over his eyes.
Hmm.
There's all the sense. So you're looking at this as a righteous Jew. Let me throw the reverse perspective. Did he have the right to, was he justified in killing these magi because of the threat that they're bringing to his kingdom?
I mean, the
You're
mad
looking
guy.
at,
No, he didn't kill the mad guy, right?
no, but was he justified in wanting to kill the magi or wanting to kill these kids based on the threat to his kingdom? Because you're saying he should have known not to do this. I'm saying maybe he didn't go far enough. Maybe he should have leveled Bethlehem. Like your assumption, again, we keep going back to maybe what our definitions of kings are. The monarchy, at least historically, rabbinically, and definitely Talmudically, the monarchy has the right to execute because it's a threat to the monarchy. That goes without say, and it's not a crime. You're allowed. It's not. This is one of the differences between killing versus murdering. To kill is you kill at battle. You kill righteously. You kill for good reasons. You kill when you slaughter an animal. You kill when you step on an ant. You murder when there's an ethical problem with the killing. An execution is definitely not, again, depending on your values, but an execution is not inherently evil. An execution could be, I would say, a holy action. It could be a commandment to execute someone if it's to destroy the evil that's in your midst. So I want to ask you the reverse question. You think he's literally acting so bad by breaking the 10 commandments or breaking other prescriptions, but maybe shouldn't they of the Magi have known the consequences? Shouldn't have Bethlehem understood that this is a threat to the king? We already saw earlier that all of Jerusalem were speaking about it.
Mhm.
So not only is maybe Herod justified, but shouldn't this been understood by
Mhm.
Bethlehem? Shouldn't
So
this been
I think,
understood
yeah,
by Joseph and Mary and the Magi?
yeah, that's a great question. I think we probably we briefly touched upon this last week. Like, why would the Magi even go to Bethlehem? Like, why would they even go to Jerusalem? Because having known who Herod was, that he was paranoid, he killed people, and they believe that this is a king. That why would they even go there? And and like
And
what?
we gave multiple good answers, all right. They have to, like, they're reading the star, they're astrologists, they're just like we have the idea of Messiah, the son of Joseph. There's an idea that the new king of the Jews has to have a herald, have it be inaugurated. There's a lot of reasons why they might have gone,
Mhm.
but it doesn't mean that they couldn't have done it secretly. Did they have to go to Jerusalem? What happened if they went straight from the east to Bethlehem and didn't stop in Jerusalem? You would miss the herald. You wouldn't get the great announcement, but you'd have infinitely or much less murder of the babies in Bethlehem.
So which announcement? When you said if they went to Bethlehem, if they went to Bethlehem
If they
directly,
went straight to Bethlehem instead of stopping in Jerusalem,
yeah.
why did they? When they went to Jerusalem, they said, "Here, here, King of the Jews is here."
Yeah, I think so. The way I read this is again, this is what the author wants us to know what happened back then, right?
Where
And
is the one who has been born King of the Jews? It's
yeah,
almost like crazy. Where
crazy.
is he? Herod, I see you over there. Don't worry about it. Where's the real king? It's
So
almost like meant to enrage him.
the way I look at this is the one way in which I understand this is the author meant for us to know that no works of men can thwart the works of God. Again, that's my biggest takeaway now. Is it painful? Yeah. Were people
But it's
dead?
more
Yeah.
than that. Like,
It's
even
more
if
than
that was true, we still didn't need the Magi to make these announcements. We could have said, like, oh, Herod heard out that the king was going to be born and took all these actions.
that.
I don't think, like I think what you're saying, the general theology that the works of God can't be stopped, is not a questionable theology. I don't think it's almost like, I think like the omniscient, omnipresent. It's something that I think is an assumption of the text, and not something that has to be specifically
So,
explained.
okay, now but the book of Matthew, right? It's not only a historical book. It's a book which has certain stories to portray a bigger
No, no, 100%. The question is,
narrative, right? And so yes, I mean, like like the life of Jesus from the if I mean from the author's perspective, these were what he thought were important, and he tried to form a collective story. But it's not to say that this is exactly. I mean that everything here is all that happened. That the author didn't pick and choose what he thought was appropriate, which leads up to his bigger story. And so again, if that is true, right? If that's what the author is pushing for, he has a bigger goal in mind. and and if he cherry picked, when I mean cherry picked, none of them are false, but he picked out things which he thought were important from his vantage point. Then was this what he was hoping for, to show that, yeah, through the midst of all this, that these magi were so naive that they would want to go to Herod's palace and ask for the king. um, um,
and it could be because they felt that they were so dumb and
yeah.
naive to come by in the first place, such that King Herod and all Jerusalem were disturbed. It could be he thought, well, these guys are dumb enough to stop you in the first place. Why wouldn't they be dumb enough to come back
Yeah.
from Bethlehem?
Yeah.
But
What
if
do you
anything,
think? So what do you think? I mean, I don't look at the book of Matthew as just that, like, this is that this is all there is to it. I mean, yes, I mean, the way I look at this is what the author wants us to know. For him, again, as he leads up to his big claims of who Jesus, to whom Jesus is, and so um, you know, I'm
listen,
intrigued.
you and I have been intrigued, confused, and dumbfounded by the
Yeah.
very presence of Magi. And I think each
By
situation
pagan
where we talk about
by
it,
and by pagan magi who believe in astrology. I mean, we want to
pagan
put the
Magi, oh, Zoroastrian, who knows? Um, so, so I don't think we're going to come to any further conclusions aside from the fact that the author Matthew wants you to know that it wasn't good enough for the king of the Jews to magically appear out of nowhere from Joseph and Mary. There had to be more, and that's why I feel strongly about this hypothesis that there must be an announcement. And if you look what they did, it's almost like crazy how they spoke when they went to Jerusalem. When they went to Jerusalem, they said in 2:2, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews?" That is like the most insane line. It's almost like they're, how can I enrage Herod and confuse Jerusalem? So I
yeah.
feel like there must be, it could be their religion or the star necessitated
Yeah.
that they have to make an announcement.
Now
Okay.
here's the thing, right? Now here's the thing. We don't know that this is exact words. This is what the author wants us to know. I mean, so
Gotta trust the words. Gotta trust the words, Isaac.
okay, fine, fine.
Believe in the gospel.
I do, Amen.
Okay.
So,
So we have like the, a really crazy idea now here.
yeah,
All of a sudden, so he reacts violently, crazily. He could have said, "Let me figure out. Let me send some centurions and figure out where it is that they visited and figure out where Jesus lived. Let's kill the baby," not knowing that they already left, by the way. But what does he do? He goes and does something that is impossible to understand at first glance. He doesn't say wipe the city out. He says kill all the males 2 years and less. So how do you understand that, Isaac?
to me, it's again, again, on the face of it, it seems as a gross. Again, it's a moral evil that he wanted to kill somebody, right? And by this age, now by this time, he had been king for almost 40 years, so he probably knew he's going to be king for another 10, 20 years, maybe at the most, if he lived that long. And let's just say that this child who's 2 years old, he cannot become king overnight. It takes an amount of time. So I would have thought, would he have done at least in some form of analysis, like, I'm king, I've been king for 40 years, I'll probably be king for another 5, 10 years at the most, or 15 years. And if this child is born today, in this last year or so, how long will it take before he will become king? And maybe I will kill him then, or maybe I'll kill him at that time when there's more evidence. Versus this sounds like, I'm king, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. He comes across, again, it further shows he comes across as being, you know, my way or the highway, and I'm going to do what I'm
Well,
going to do.
obviously, this text begs itself
Yeah.
to parallel to Exodus
Exodus.
chapter 1, verses 15 to 22, when the Pharaoh tells the midwives to kill all the Hebrew baby boys. In that situation, we also could ask, why were the baby boys singled out? If you want to kill a nation, kill baby boys and baby girls. Over here, ironically, it actually makes a lot more sense that baby boys are killed. Why were baby boys killed here?
King, because he's a king.
We don't want
The
to get
next
rid of the king. So this
except
text actually makes more sense than the Exodus text, and people have to try to figure out, well, why do they only kill the babies? Oh, if you don't have boys, you don't have babies. No, you don't have
no,
girls, you don't have babies. You don't
yeah,
have boys, you don't have bad habits.
bad habit. Yeah. So my biggest takeaway from this is that you're saying it was okay. It was okay the part of the king to execute these kids, even though these kids did no wrong.
I'm not saying,
It's acceptable. You're saying it's acceptable, even as a Jew. It was acceptable for him as a king to do what you want
I don't know.
to do what he did.
I guess like it's a good question. I don't know how far I'm willing to go. At a certain point, if a king gets too militant and too bloodthirsty, you have to be deposed.
I mean, isn't this too bloodthirsty enough to kill his own again? His own citizens, who people are, again, who are
You know how
weak,
bloodthirsty is?
who can.
If you look in Exodus 1, does Pharaoh go and try to kill the babies, or what does he do? He says, the king of Egypt told the Hebrew midwives, whose names were Shiphrah and Puah, when you help the Hebrew woman in childbirth, look at the child being delivered. If it's a boy, kill it. If it's a girl, let it live. In other words, be very sneaky and secretive.
Okay,
Pharaoh
yeah,
in Egypt
yeah.
didn't want to go kill babies, and Herod's like, take the swords out,
Yeah.
kill the babies.
So here's the thing. I mean, so if what King Herod did, if this is okay, that this acceptable, then by that same definition, what Pharaoh did should be acceptable too.
Well,
But
first
we
of all,
say that that's not acceptable. If that's not acceptable, then even this is not acceptable. We can't.
so again, like we could talk about the morality of infanticide and killing people, but I'm just pointing out that I'm not saying it's justified or not, morally or not, but I would say we all find this situation morally repugnant.
Yeah.
But when a king kills people, no one thinks he's held to the same status. Like, there's a scene in Braveheart where the king just throws someone out the window and people look up and they go, oh, the king did it, no questions asked. So I'm just pointing out the monarchical license that took place then, that everyone recognizes the king. When King David said, oh, you're bringing the news that Saul was killed, you have to be killed for that. No one said, oh, King David's a horrible person. They say, King David, that guy should have known better than bring that news.
So you're saying, okay, so by that definition, are you saying is what King Pharaoh did? Is that okay? So you're saying, as
So
a king, he was
I would
perfectly
note to
right
you
to kill the
that
Hebrew
I would
men.
note to you that Pharaoh didn't think it was okay, and that's why he did it secretly. He did not send his soldiers into the midwives' areas and say, "Want me watch and I'll kill." He said, "Hey, midwives."
I know.
So I would say Pharaoh didn't find it okay. Herod, on the other hand, is definitely being depicted as a more bloodthirsty individual than Pharaoh, which is awesome.
So here's my question: like this goes even further beyond blood. Like it's beyond ethics, right? Like this is like he's breaking the Ten Commandments. So, and that's the point I'm getting to. It's like, yes, I mean ethically it's bad, but as a king you say it's fine. But doesn't this go against the Ten Commandments? And that's at a much more deeper level. And
Listen. I'm not here to tell you how important the Ten Commandment is versus the other 10 trillion commandments. There's no doubt that he's doing something that's morally repugnant. I think we could say that. There's no doubt that he's viewed, at least being depicted, as more evil than even Pharaoh.
Mhm.
But he gave the orders.
Yeah, but I'm surprised now to your point that why did he kill only the men? Like why not destroy the entire city of
Okay, so
Bethlehem? Bro?
now you're going to the next point. Let's go now. This is our last point in this verse. Who would you have expected? Who did Pharaoh kill? He said when the babies popped out, Shiphrah and Puah should go execute the boys on the spot. What does he say? Anyone up to age 2. So now the obvious question, Isaac, what's special about 2? Why up to age 2? So let's go through the possibilities. One is the magical possibility. There was a star, and the star said the baby was born, and it was born at some time. That's how stars are very ambiguous. It's not easy to interpret them for
Mhm.
astrologers. So at some point up to age 2, that's one possibility. Another possibility could be a sub point to this is that until age 2 in the Bible, people are babies. We see this specifically by Isaac. what point was Isaac weaned? And when did Abraham have the party? He said at 2 years old, Isaac was weaned. And that was kind of like this rite of passage. In Judaism, we have a circumcision at 8 days. And in Judaism today, we have like a 3-year-old thing. But in the Bible, it's very clear that 2 years was like the rite of passage, that like you're no longer with your mother. We also see this by Samuel. Samuel stayed with his mother until he was brought to the tabernacle. So it seems that the age of 2 here probably was meant to parallel the Isaac and the Samuel examples, and that anyone who's a baby, blanket statement, he's like, kill him, don't care.
How many people do you think? How many people do you think were killed?
Not a lot.
10, 50, 100?
So Bethlehem, ancient Bethlehem. I don't know if you've ever seen the size of ancient Bethlehem, and even in Christian times, it's gone. So if you Google really quickly, just like take a look of how big Beit Lechem was back in the day. It's much, much, much bigger today. Just like Jerusalem. Jerusalem was a big city. So at how many male childs in the city of Bethlehem? It couldn't have been more than 100. But I would have probably put it in at most the teens. That's what would be my guess. But no. Let's be honest. The text could have told us how bad it was, and if anything, we're really getting the bare facts here. We're not really getting the whole treatment.
That's right. Yeah.
The irony is, he shouldn't have said kill the boys. What should Herod said?
Just destroy the entire city.
Oh yeah, or find the baby. Even once you kill all those babies, when Pharaoh killed the baby boys, there's actually different stories. There's a famous medrash, a famous story that he also was able to interpret through his astrologers, or through the river, or through from stars, that the Messiah was going to be born that day. So it's really interesting. I don't know if it's true, but it's really interesting.
Pharaoh, okay, Pharaoh and the Messiah. What is Pharaoh going to do?
The messianic figure who was able to take the Israelites out of exile back to the.
Okay, so my understanding is he killed the boys, or he wanted them killed because the Israelites were growing in number, not so much because he thought they might have a king. Or you're saying this is a story that he had that he knew.
Actually, not a story. Like I would say, one of the most famous stories. When we talk about the Midrashim, the rabbinic stories around Moses, that he was born at an auspicious time, or a star, or something happened, and Pharaoh's magicians, his astrologers knew, and therefore they decided we have to kill the baby boys, not because he's worried about population control, because population control, you kill everyone or the women, but because he's worried about a messianic figure who could take the Jews out of Egypt into the promised land. So it's really interesting. I don't know if this is true, but there's at least the possibility that story was floating around in the first century, and it was either created here or co-opted here for the Jesus narrative, which is like a really amazing possibility, because we don't really understand, you and I, the way that first century rabbinic stories are interplaying and interchanging and interacting with the gospel. So it's just a really cool possibility that the Moses narrative is the stories happening are being used by the gospel to say, this is the new Moses, as you were saying, from the kingship perspective.
Well, that's a great observation. I didn't know that. But I'm also intrigued. Like Bethlehem and Jerusalem weren't that far apart. You said they're 10-mile distance. And if Herod really wanted the king, right? I mean, if Herod really wanted to kill again the future king, and he was so paranoid, expand the area. It's not like, I mean, you're right. If you were doing this, Isaac, you would say, kill who you want, maybe, but find the damn baby. Find the baby. Yeah. It's literally malfeasance on Herod's part that he didn't find the baby. And listen, imagine they went door to door, because you can't imagine the population was helping them. They would have seen that Jesus, Mary's, and Joseph's home was empty. They fled already. Yeah. They might even smell some frankincense. So what do you think? So what do you think that the author wants us to know from this? Like, as you've noticed, right, that there's this interplay between the birth of Moses and the birth of Jesus, and to show that the Messiah, the future Messiah. Like, do you think that the author meant his initial Jewish audience to, for them, like,
those the 2 points you just said are what I think we need to get out of it. Number one, Jesus is the new Moses. And number two, Jesus is the prophecy fulfiller of Old Testament prophecies. And therefore, he went down to Egypt in order to get like our next verse that we're in 2:18 from Jeremiah. So I think 100. Those are the 2 points. Jesus is the Old Testament fulfillment.
So
The
when you
Greek point,
say,
right?
okay, when you say Jesus is a new Moses, what did Moses represent to the
The
Jewish
highest
people?
level a human being could be on earth.
Is he even bigger than Elijah? And
100%. Moses, the last verse in the Pentateuch says there will never be another prophet like Moses ever. That's the last, like literally it finishes on that note saying, by the way, me, you, God, we're done. There's never going to be another guy. So it could be the Christian community felt that was a defeater. They
So
felt
what's so special about him? So what's so special about him? You know, I'm blinking, right? These people who didn't die, who are taken up to heaven,
okay.
there are 3 of
So
them.
I'll
There
make
are
you the
3.
quick list, but there's the rabbinic list and the Bible. So first of all, he's 120 years old. Okay, so that's usually like the ultimate number. It says that he spoke face to face of God. It says that there was no prophet like him, prophecy being like the magical thing of the highest way you could reach as a human being. It seems he had to wear a mask because he had a light coming out of his head. He had all these extra natural elements that were literally viewed as magical because he was not, when he went up, we're going to see Jesus did a 40-day journey too. The whole idea of 40-day journeys is that you're a changed being. You're not this natural physical being anymore. All of a sudden there's a metaphysical presence that's artificially changing your natural space. So when he went up on the mountain 40 days, he didn't drink. Why? Because he's not a human anymore.
Mm-hmm.
He has this extra robotic or this extra magical element. So I think Jesus, it could be that the Christian community viewed this as a problem. That if Moses was the greatest guy, like why do Jews not believe? Why don't Jews believe that Jesus was a prophet? Why don't they believe that Muhammad maybe got another Quran? Maybe why can't God another message? The answer is because the Old Testament says so. They view the Old Testament as an ending. And
So when you say Christian, right, who am I referring to? Like this book, I mean, this book, the audience for this book were Jewish
that's what I'm
people.
saying.
Believe.
Okay, but it was an argument for Jews. Certain Jews would have been just part of the Christian community, but they want to convince other Jews. Let's say they go to a new town, say, "Hey, hear the good word," and they would say, "This guy is either the son of God, this guy's king of the Jews, this guy's super special," and they'd say, "What are you talking about?" In Deuteronomy, in the last verse, it says there's never going to be a guy that's more special. And they say, no, this guy is more special. And then the Jews would have said, that's impossible. And then the Christians would have said, I got some prophecy fulfillments. Don't worry about it. So I feel like that's a scale that people would have had to evaluate and saying like, if it can be a new Moses or an above Moses or an extra Moses, let's call him Uber Moses. If he could be an Uber Moses, it could only be because there has to be a reinterpretation of something in the Old Testament and the Bible. So you have to throw away some verse. Like, the classic example that a lot of times Jews do is that when they say like, oh, the Bible says I'm never going to throw away these commandments. And then Christians say, oh, I eat pig and it's fine. So, some Christians. So the problem is like, what do you do with all these verses that seem to contradict your current belief system? You see this in the Christian community a lot, around the LGBT community, around homosexuality. A lot of times you'll see like, oh, you can't sodomize, if you're a man, you can't sodomize another man.
Yeah,
Why?
that's a whole different topic, and
Well,
okay, but
what's
that's
the
much
reason?
richer. That's a
What's the
much.
reason? You can't do this, or you can't let's say get divorced. So the Old Testament has certain rules, and the New Testament has to struggle with either accept that rule or reject that rule. But the second you reject that rule, you take like a Pauline Christianity, you're opening up a whole can of worms. Because why did it say in the first place? You have to say like, oh, Jesus is coming to fulfill or whatever. But you have all these problems with these old verses. So the more that they could show that the Jesus is fulfilling Old Testament prophecies, I just think it buttresses their argument.
I see. Interesting. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
I think you actually have a meeting soon, I believe.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. On that note, on that note, maybe this might be a
Did we
good
finish
place
the
to.
verse? Did we finish the verse at least?
We finished. Yeah. So we can start with 17 and 18 tomorrow. We're done with. I think we're done with 16.
Well, I guess we didn't do the last line of 16. Let's get that. What does that
Yeah.
mean? So who were 2 years old or under, okay, in accordance with the time he had learned from the Magi. So I guess
And
the Magi
that's
told him 2 years or younger? Is that
yeah,
what
that's 2:7, right? Matthew 2:7, because he met with them and he ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. So he
was
probably
this
didn't.
2 years ago? Was
No,
this
so Yeah, this is according to 2:7. The Magi saw the star 2 years ago. It's been almost 2 years now. At least that's what 2:7 says.
Really?
Or probably it's might not be exactly 2:7 might
And
be
Herod
might be a
called the
year.
Magi secretly found them from the exact time the star had appeared. So I agree with you that this is referring to 2:7, but it doesn't say when the star appeared in 2:7. 2:7 just says that
The star
they
appeared.
said when the star. I
Well,
understood.
what time the star appeared? What time the star had appeared?
So I
So
understood that to mean that he was interpreting, have his own astrologers interpret that with that information, so he didn't have to trust them. That's what I thought that meant.
could be. So
And
yeah.
according to the time that he had learned from the Magi. So it's just I think
So
2:7 and
yeah.
2:16 are a little different, right? It sounds like 2:16 is saying the baby could have been born anytime in the last 2 years from the Magi,
Hmm.
according to the Magi. That's what it sounds like.
Hmm. So you're saying this is much deeper, where this points to Egypt, because Pharaoh wanted anyone 2 years or younger to be to be killed or to be murdered, and so
Pharaoh doesn't say that. I'm just saying
well, okay, fine. He wanted the midwife. He wanted the midwives if they
kill
were
the
2 years.
babies on the birth stool where they popped out.
Yeah. So why do you think? Okay, so this is one difference then, right? This 2 years is unique to this story, and it doesn't have a parallel. It doesn't have a similar
Well,
parallel in.
what did the Magi tell him? That's the question. Did the Magi say up to 2 years? We don't know. Or did the Magi try to fool him and say, we don't know, but that literally led to a baby massacre, so let's hope not that. It's unclear what the Magi told him, but he definitely tried to, it sounded like from 2:7, he just tried to understand when the star happened, what did you see? But over here, it sounds like he listened to the Magi's interpretation of up to 2 years.
The more I think about this, Herod is just a conundrum, right? People have said, we killed 10 people, right? He's, 10 people, and do you feel, I mean, would he have consulted with this chief priest? Like, was this okay, or do some more added research? Maybe he did, maybe he
We
didn't,
don't
but the
see him consulting anyone, right? We don't see him talk to
yeah,
the chief priests or Torah scholars again, or the Jerusalemites. First, we have these three groups of him:
yeah.
Jerusalem, Torah scholars, and chief priests, and now it's just Herod making all decisions. And maybe that has to do with him getting a more insular understanding of his role.
And
When
it's not,
people feel
and it's
more
also not
isolated,
King Herod. It's just Herod. It's no
yeah,
longer, no longer King Herod.
right. Okay. I'll let you run because you have your I'm excited for you have another meeting that you have to run
Okay,
too.
thank you. Well, have a great day, Rabbi. I look forward to our chat tomorrow. Thank
Okay,
you.
great. Okay, have a great day. Okay, bye.